Hi everyone, you're with Maureen and Rick from Hunterline. We're all ready to do our second session of our build along of our 30-foot, 50-foot queen post covered bridge. Uh, Maureen's going to take us through the steps today to do the base of the bridge, the ties and the stringers and the underside of the bridge. And we hope to get this underway so we can get it dried for the next part of this next week. So Maureen?
Yeah, okay. So I've got my drawing taped to the board with the wax paper on top. I've got all my materials here. I've got all my ties. They should be all pre-cut for you, so that saves you a lot of time. One thing that you can do with your ties is stain them different colors. I've made mine all the same. I use my light gray. They do come out in a varied color, even just doing them with one color, but you could put a handful in say a creosote black and a handful in tie brown and then just lay them haphazardly, but I chose just to do mine in light gray. I've got my 8x8s for the shims under the tie stringer assembly, the 8x12 for the cords, and the 8x14 for the stringers. You can always go to your little bill of materials. I always cut mine out and paste it to my board. I don't know if you can see that. No. Anyway, it's on your big template drawing, and you can put your bill of materials there, and it will tell you exactly how many pieces that you should have. And for example, the cords are 8x12s, and there's 2 pieces needed on the bridge, and you've got 1 piece supplied to you. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut all the lumber that I need for this tie stringer assembly. So I've measured my stringers. Just put it on your drawing, and you can cut it with a razor saw. I've got most of mine cut already, but I'll take this one, and I just start it with a little notch here. Take it to your cutting board. And just cut that. If you need to file it, you can take your file, or you can use the Ultimation sander and just file those edges. And you need 8 stringers, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think I have 8. I used the Ultimation slicer to get all these exactly the same, so that was great. It works pretty nifty. I'll show you how easy it is. It's got the repeater on it, so you just measure the length. I had my stringer in here, each one for that size. Tightened it up, and it just slices perfect, so they're all the same. So that saved me a lot of time. So I've got the stringers done, and I've got my 1 piece of 8x12 for the cords. So I'm going to measure that on this drawing. They're the 2
They're very large timbers that go underneath.
Yeah. So I'm going to measure that. Just going to put a slice there. And I'm going to grab that slicer again and put it in the slicer. Slice that, just measure, make sure I got it right. I'm a little bit long on that. Perfect. Cut my second piece, just fit it in there.
You can see how the repeater works for this. There we go. We got two pieces exactly the same.
Yeah. Works great. So my cords are done. They will be going there. And I need shims. So they're 8x8s. And I believe I do have one already cut. I measured that here.
You can see how the shims actually extend out beyond the ties. That comes into effect later when you start to put the walls on it.
And I need 4 shims, so I'm going to use the slicer again.
And what a shim is used for. A shim is, like the word implies, a shim. This is the hunk that they put in to do the final leveling of the track on the bridge to the track that's on the land. So the shims actually can be variable sizes, but usually they use the lumber that's available, and most of the lumber available are the ties. So our ties are all 8x8, and so there's 8x8s all over the construction site. So they use that for the shims to start with. They might have to plane them down to make them fit, or add another little shim on it to make it go up, or whatever they have to do on the site to fix it.
Okay, so I've got those 4 cut, and I think that's all I have to cut before I start putting this together. So what I'm going to do next is put a masking tape, sticky side up, along that track assembly.
People always wonder how you do this. How you put tape sticky side up?
Just lay it sticky side up and take another little piece of tape and tape it at the ends. Okay.
If you have double-sided tape, that will work too.
So then take your all your ties, and I'm going to place them every 4th tie, and that's where you see the little.
You can see the little dots here. Actually, if you magnify those, they're actually hexagon nuts on there. But that's the placement of the MBWs, the nut bolt washer castings. So just for ease, it's easier to put the ties on there first. One of the points here is to get this whole subassembly into a rigid situation so that you can continue it. So we're going to lay, I think it's about 10 ties along it, and then you put the stringers to that. Now, not all the stringers, just the 2 outside stringers. And then let that set up for a little bit, and then the whole thing becomes a rigid thing. You don't have to have it on the drawing anymore. You can take it off and use it wherever you want. Sometimes this is a little bit tricky. If they're not exactly squared up, don't worry about it, because you can still adjust that later.
Might have to do some filing afterwards if they're hanging over the edge.
You can see in the middle, it's not every 4th tie. It's just because it didn't have enough ties there to do the 4. So it's in the middle of the bridge, it varies a little bit.
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure my glue is working here. So what I'm gonna do is just put a little dab of glue along the outer edge of each tie, and then start with my outer stringers. You don't need too much glue. You don't want to have to be wiping a lot of it off. Just a little dot. And as I suggested last session, this glue bottle is great because it doesn't come out too fast. Just a little dot, that's all you need. And I'm using the LePage's wood glue. Sorry, get my head in there.
Like any construction project, you place the wood so the bigger dimension is vertical, just for the strength of it.
I like to use just the tip of my tweezer if I've got some excess glue oozing out. I'll just scrape it off. Just make sure it's on the outer edge of those ties. I think we're good there. So then what I would do is put some weights on there.
Our weathering mix is made for weights.
It works pretty good.
You gotta remember each one's 8 ounces, so there's a pound and a half of weight sitting on there.
So you would just let that normally sit there for maybe, I don't know, even 5 minutes is great. But I'm going to pretend that that's done. And we're just going to continue on.
See, if this becomes the assembly, like I said before, then you don't have to do it on the drawing anymore. You can take it off the drawing, and it's a rigid assembly. You can do whatever you want to do to it.
So just go along and follow the stringer.
Now, one of the things I need to explain here is the prototype of the Queen Post and the King Post bridge. Back then, they didn't have the technology of grouping the stringers together like they do in later years. So it's like the road bridges they build, they equal spaced each stringer going across. So if you know anything about more modern day bridges, like late 1800s and so on, they used to put 3 stringers together right under the track. So there's 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. But in this particular design, it's all equal spaced.
I usually just stick a few on and then get them set down, scrape off the glue, and go ahead for another couple. We've got 8 of them to do. That piece there is a little bit warped. I'm just gonna shove it over a little bit and maybe put a weight on there. Don't wanna hide what I'm doing. Okay, 2 more here.
All right, it's starting to look like a structure.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the track, Rick? Or?
Well, actually, as soon as you get the fact of it being a covered bridge, you're not going to be able to get your hand in there later to put the track on there. So as soon as you start to lay the ties along there, that's the point where you can put the track on, especially if you're going to spike it. If you're just going to glue it, you can actually do it later. But if you're going to spike it, you should be thinking about that now, whatever code, whatever scale you're doing.
I'm just going to let that set for a couple minutes here, I think,
Okay.
before I flip it over and put the rest of the ties on. Okay, so
through the magic of video, that's pretty much dry now.
okay, so the next thing we want to do is just flip that assembly over. So grab the end of your tape here carefully, and you just lift it up, lift the structure up. And carefully,
Now, one of the secrets about this is to do it on an angle. Exactly.
just hold your tie down. And I've got some glue that I need to take off, so just check and make sure. If you've got excess glue, just scrape it off.
So what we're going to do now is place a couple of the ties. Because you're doing every fourth tie, this is a simple little process. When you put the rest of the ties on, don't worry about the drawing. Do it by eye. So you would put in between the ties that are there now, you would put one in the middle, and one at the quarter, and one at the 3/4 mark. And do it by your eye. Don't do it by the drawing.
Yeah, so just, I take my little bottle and I lay my structure over the drawing still, just
As a guide.
a little
sure.
bit of a guide. So then you can start in the middle, like Rick said. You can put a few drops along there. If I can get it going here. That glued too. Okay. You just need a little dot. Just down the center here. And then alongside it.
On the quarter mark.
Yep.
And on the 3/4 mark.
Some. There we go. Sticking the one in the middle.
And now just use your eyes to make sure they're all pretty much equal distance.
I'll just do 3 more here for you. You'll have to go back later and scrape off the excess glue.
You can see how some of the ties are a slightly different shade. That's the whole thing about doing a board by board staining process. You can see every tie is just a little different by itself. And this is only using one color. If you use multiple colors, it's just great.
Yeah, it looks nice if you do the different colors. You go back over it later with a wash of our creosote black, and it just kind of coheres all the colors.
So you would just do all the rest of the ties across there to get that section of it finished. And the next thing is what we call the MBWs, which are nut bolt washers. So on this particular prototype, they're every 4th tie. That's what those little dots on the drawing were. I've been criticized for not, it should be every tie. Well, not in the mid-1800s. They had every 4th tie. And if you look at some of the prototype drawings that we have in some of our kits, it very distinctly shows every 4th tie. More modern day is 3 or 4 bolts in each one.
So what I'm going to do is just pilot a hole for those little nut bolt washer castings, so you know that it's every 4th tie wherever you see that little mark on the drawing. That's where you're going to put an NBW. So I'm just going to do a few here for you. I like to use the pin vise and a little drill bit to suit the size of the nut bolt washer casting. Rick likes to use a push pin. You could use that too, whatever you prefer.
Push pin does a big hole, so you know where to put it in later.
You might need some magnification here.
By the way, we are doing the S-scale version We find S scale is the easiest to get across the camera, so that like if we were doing N scale, like the whole N scale one is about 3 inches long, so you can tell like you wouldn't be able to see anything. And the O scale is just a little too big for in front of the camera.
So just get your hole piloted there, and take your sprue of MBWs. I hope you can see this okay. Take a very sharp X-Acto knife, and I usually just cut off maybe 3 at a time. So hold your pointer finger over top of the X-Acto knife. You can see that. So you're kind of cutting it. Leave it quite a large tail. Cut it pretty close to the sprue, and just push down. Leave your finger on top so that the little NBWs don't go flying all over the place.
Now, they're notorious for just flipping everywhere. That you can just see that they were flipping all by themselves.
I don't know if you can see those.
If you're a beginner at this, take your time. Try not to lose any. If they fall on the floor, you will never find them. Never.
So what you need to do it on a piece of white paper for sure. And as I said,
Glue.
These tweezers are great for this. Just make sure that whatever you're using has a very, very sharp point and that they meet at the end, okay? Get yourself a little pot of glue. Just put a little dab somewhere on your wax paper so you can dip the tail in there. So take your tweezers and just grab that little nut bolt washer casting just under the head, okay? And turn your tweezer over and dip that tail in the glue and pop it in the hole and just shove it in. Pretty hard to see.
We have lots of guys say, "Why do you bother doing this?" Well, it does give a like a 3-dimensional look of the tie. Now, in N scale, there's just no way that anybody produces NBWs that small. So what we use then is it's not a magic marker, but it's a Sharpie, and it's a red color, and it's extra fine. But the thing to look for is non-bleeding, because if you use a regular one and touch it, it bleeds all over where it's supposed to go. Where if you use non-bleeding one, it actually looks like a little NBW.
I got my felt-tipped marker that's a rust color from Michael's, and it was in the scrapbooking session. So you just need to kind of have a look around and see if you can find something that looks like that color brown. So there you go. Just have to be patient and put those NBWs in. The next thing I'm going to do is just glue those the shims on the bottom. So you can flip your assembly over, just lay it on your drawing, and you know that there's going to be 2 shims on each end. You can see on your drawing that they overhang a little bit on each side.
You just kind of equal space them.
Yeah. So
on each side.
Stick your glue on each of those stringers.
And you can actually glue them together and glue them down.
I usually I don't glue them together. Should I be gluing them together?
No, you don't have to. You can just do it like that.
Okay.
No matter how you're going to do it, it's going to be super strong.
So just kind of get over top of your drawing and make sure that you've got them equal distance overhang.
Now, if the stringers don't line up exactly at the end, don't worry about it, because that can be filed off later so it is flush.
And again, you can just take your tweezers and get the excess glue off. Okay. So then, you know what, I think for the purpose of time, I'm just going to show you how to do the cords, and you can do the other shims on the other end. So in the center of your drawing, you're going to see where the cords go. Right here, one there and one there. So again, just get that assembly centered. And I think that's pretty good. And take your glue and run it along. And again, you take your cord and the
Big side up
big
and down.
side up is, yeah, vertical. And I think that's pretty good. Looks pretty good. I'm just going to take the excess glue off. I think that's good.
Go that way a little bit, just a little bit.
I need to go that way a little
Yep.
bit.
At the top there.
Up here?
Yep.
Oh, it looks pretty good to me over here. My eyes aren't good, I guess. Okay. There, so that's how you put the cord on. And of course you put the other cord on over here and your other shims here. And that's your little tie stringer assembly done. And what you will have to do is when it's all set and dry is take a file, and if there's any ties that are overhanging that last stringer, especially on the ends, make sure that you file it down so that it's even with the stringer. Okay, but wait till it's all set up and glued nicely.
You don't want to start filing and then all those come off.
Yeah. And I think that's it, Rick.
Looking good.
We cover everything, I think. I think so.
When you put those bottom cords on, they actually are very parallel to the ties. So, like we're doing this a little bit ahead of time because the ties aren't on it yet. But you can line it up with the ties, and that'll make sure that you're square and plumb to everything.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it. So a little bit of homework for next week.
Yep.
And then we'll do the wall structure.
Yep. We're getting there.
Or
Hey.
not the wall structure, the bridge.
Yep. We're going to finish off the Queen Post Bridge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably it for this
Yeah.
time, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're doing really good, everybody. I hope you're building along with us, okay? All right, so we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Have a good one.